Hello dear tea friends from around the world. Welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Erler. We are starting the second class of Baozhong teas this semester. This class is brought to you by the tea shop tea-masters.com and also by the blog Tea Masters. I'm the founder of the blog, Stéphane Erler, and I'm also the selector of the teas in the boutique tea-masters.com. It ranges from the first batch of green tea from Sancha Sancha Bilochun in Taiwan, in north of Taiwan, to red teas from the east coast, very oxidized teas. It goes from the low altitude Sijichun to the highest mountains of Lishan, Daoling, Fushoshan, even the highest garden at 104K in Daoling. The teas also range from old arbor, Gushu pu'er from Linsang, Banzang, Yiwu, Jiangcheng, to very old pu'ers, the 7542 from Monghai, 1999, is one of the beautiful tea in my selection. And we also even have flower-scented teas, jasmine teas, but also osmanthus, Baozhong. And this brings us to the subject of this class, Baozhong. We are going to continue our exploration of the relationship between the history of Taiwan and the history of Baozhong. And we are going to brew this Jade Excellence Baozhong from this spring. I will show you again how to brew it best. Yeah, and then we will finish with some more facts about Baozhong history. So, what can we say about the early history of the Wenshan Baozhong? The Wenshan era region that gave its name to the Wenshan Baozhong was started to be developed under the mid Qing dynasty. Qing dynasty started in 1644 and lasted until 1911. So here we are around early 1800, and the Chinese government has authorized 3 families to explore, to kind of colonize the area around the Xindian River, where Taipei is nowadays. And these families were named Zhao, Gao, and Lin. They came from Anxi in Fujian. And how did they colonize this place? Well, they pushed the Xiulang Aborigines away from these plains, these fertile grounds, and the Aborigines had to retreat to the mountains. So they did not go there very willingly. Force was involved, and we still see remains of this history in the fact that when you travel to mountains in Taiwan, that's where you encounter most Aborigine villages. You recognize these villages' traits as being a bit different, less Asian, more Austro-Asian, and they have also much more Catholic churches. The missionaries were very busy converting these Aborigines to the Christian faith, and so you will encounter lots of churches in these mountainous regions. That's a direct impact from this push by Chinese immigrants from Anxi or Guangdong. Several waves came here, and probably this Lin family that I just mentioned is the one that has given us these wonderful gardens in Banqiao, where I often bring tea guests to share a cup of tea. and I hope that you'll be next when you come to Taiwan. I'll take you there. So little by little, Taiwan became fuller and fuller with Chinese who came from across the straits as the economy developed here, far away from the capital in Beijing. And it's actually in 1887 that Taiwan became a province on its own in the Chinese kingdom, or Chinese empire. Before Taiwan was part of Fujian, and we see this integration, we saw that last week, in the fact that Taiwan merchants would send their Baozhong leaves to Fuzhou in Fujian and have them centered over there. But as Taiwan started to stand on its own, they started to make their own tea from beginning to the end and export it to Southeast Asia. So that's also when Taiwan became a province. However, well, good things cannot last forever. They actually only lasted 8 years, because in 1895, so just 8 years after becoming a province, Taiwan was ceded to Japan. China and Japan had a quick war over in the neighborhood of Korea. So actually not over Taiwan. China lost these several battles, and this led to an unequal treaty where China ceded Taiwan as a compensation, because Japan just, as a victor, said, okay, give me Taiwan. It seems that the economy is doing well over there, we want it. And well, they were stronger, they got it. And so in 1895, so Taiwan now became Japanese. So far, not a lot of impact on the tea trade. Taiwan continued to export to Southeast Asia. This is where Indonesia at the time was controlled by Holland, and Singapore, I think, by Britain. Vietnam was controlled by the French, but things were going along like usual, because the overseas Chinese there, they liked their scented Baozhong very much, so the trade continued. And it reached its peak in 1924, and then it started to go down. Why? Because these Western powers who were controlling Southeast Asia, they were confronted with the rise of Japan, and they imposed tariffs on Japanese exports. And now that Taiwan was part of Japan, the scented Baozhong was also hit by these exports and became too expensive for these countries to be imported. That reminds me of a situation, I think, nowadays. History repeats, and we'll see that it did not end so well, because Taiwan did not have this overseas market in Southeast Asia. Luckily for Taiwan, but maybe unluckily for the world, Japan invaded northeast China and installed a puppet state, Manchukuo. They put Puyi, the last emperor, as its head of state. If you've watched the movie by Bernardo Bertolucci in 1987, then you will probably remember this incredible story of this little boy who lost the empire in 1911, but then he became a puppet in the hands of the Japanese and acted as the head of state of this Japanese-controlled province called Manchukuo. And Manchukuo became an export destination for the Taiwanese Baozhong scented tea. Over there it was called Xiangpian in Chinese, because now the customers are Chinese who lived in northeast of China. And it's a bit kind of ironic because Xiangpian really became one of their favorite drink, and it became also kind of the drink that people from the nationalist party, the Kuomintang, when they retreated with Chiang Kai-shek to Taiwan, that was the kind of tea that they would drink. I know that from my family. My father-in-law would drink only Xiangpian, not oolong tea like the Taiwanese. And so you had a separation between the Taiwanese who would drink oolong or unscented Baozhong, and the mainland Chinese who came with a nationalist party, who would drink this Xiangpian, this tea scented with Baozhong, with jasmine flowers. And actually, it is also a Taiwanese drink. It was only made for export. Xiangpian was very little drunk in Taiwan in the 1930s. It was really for the export market. And when these nationalists came, that's the drink they were used to, and that they continued to drink in Taiwan. So you had really a market segmentation. If you're Taiwanese, you drink oolong. If you are from the KMT, then you drink jasmine tea. All being Taiwanese teas. There is also another export market that became victim of geopolitics. It is Vietnam. When the communists took Saigon in 1975, that's also when the exports of scented Baozhong to Vietnam stopped. So we see that history maybe repeats itself. Sometimes it's involved in it creates, or it is part of wars. Tariffs can lead to wars, but definitely geopolitics has an impact on where tea can be sold or taxed at a high percentage rate. So again, I apologize to my American tea friends who are not able to place orders on my website, because currently the tariffs are just not just high, but there is no way for the Taiwan post office to collect the tariff fees beforehand, and therefore they don't have the system yet to process even tariffs. And to do it, you would need DHL or FedEx, but here the shipping costs are at least $100 per package, so very, very difficult. Now, let's continue. I'm starting to be thirsty. Let's brew our second tea from our Baozhong set for these classes. This is the Baozhong Jade Excellence, harvested on April the 8th. This will take away. I propose you take roughly 5 grams, almost enough for half a gaiwan. We are going to compare the leaves of this tea with the leaves of last week's Wenshan Baozhong. That was also a jade cultivar, but and also spring, just harvested 2 days later. And the first thing that we can learn by comparing it is the appearance. Here it's very obvious the leaves look much darker, much finer, more harmonious. There's not such a big discrepancy in size. Here we have very large leaves next to very small ones, more broken leaves maybe also, but especially these very almost yellowish leaves. Now last week we saw that these almost yellowish leaves are not Huangpian. They are not overly mature. Once they are brewed, they turn normal green color, but definitely they don't look as nice as this Jade Excellence. However, if you smell them, you don't see or you don't smell such a big difference, which is normal because these leaves are very similar, same cultivar, same location in Pinglin, same season, almost the same day, 8 April 8th, April 10th, just 2 days difference. Light oxidation in both cases, no roasting. So maybe this one got a bit overly heated during the process, but causing this uneven color of the dry leaves. But the rest, otherwise, it did not affect too much the smell. The smells are quite similar. And in terms, now that now we are going to see how the taste compares. We already drank the other one last week, so I'm not going to brew it again this week. Since almost everything is the same, we can assume that the technique we used last week can also be used with this tea. The only difference being the quality and the price, almost double, $32 for 150 gram. We can maybe use a bit fewer leaves, and if we want a bit longer brewing time to compensate the fewer leaves. This is if you like your tea with a little bit more aftertaste, a little bit more smoothness. If you like it on the very light fragrant side, then you can go with a similar amount of leaves or a little bit less and still be very quick in your first brew and also second brew. Now a quick calculation tells us that for 5 grams we are around $1 for these leaves. This is still very, very affordable compared to a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So tea, this reminds us that tea is really a luxury, not so much because of the money that it costs, even though there are more expensive teas, but mostly it's a luxury because it involves time, it involves attention, it involves a ceremonial, it involves culture and history and techniques, lots of skills. This is what makes tea such a luxury, not so much the money we spend, because at $1 actually we are spending less than a cup of coffee, and we can brew it several times. So let's get ready to brew. Go in the middle, So roughly go for almost half. It's 10 p.m., so I'm not going to make it too strong, but I'm going to make it rather quick. Okay. Pour on the leaves. And of course we have a dog, as you can hear, a very happy little dog. I hope you were not scared while I was brewing this tea. We take away the foam of the first brew. And as I said, we go quickly. For me, this tea is already done. Nice color. Very floral. Nice transparency. Very greenish. So this tea, the name is jade, and jade reminds us that this is the most important stone, the most precious stone in the Chinese culture, and the Chinese were able 1900 years ago during the Eastern Han Dynasty to do something that Western researchers tried to do for a long time. They were able to make jade from the soil. In the West, we tried to make gold from lead through alchemy. The Chinese actually were kind of able to make jade from soil. This actually is the process of doing porcelain, and it was already invented 1900 years ago. The first porcelain had a greenish tint that looked very much like jade. Now, for instance, this porcelain jar from the Yuan dynasty, maybe even Song dynasty, looks very similar to jade. And jade, this green, with its green color, is very soft to the eye, could be also a bit olive green, yellowish in earlier times, not necessarily very flashy green like you will find in today's jewelry stores. So, and most importantly, jade was so precious that it was also used in funerals to protect the body and the soul of the person who was deceased for the afterlife. So some clothes for people in burial places were made of jade, and many people wear jade kind of to protect them from evil spirits until today. So jade really has a strong link to Chinese culture, and it's not so surprising that we find this name popping up in the tea world that is a Chinese world. So this jade oolong, the name Cui jade, also takes this significance from the long history and importance of jade in Chinese culture. And the color of the brew through the Celadon porcelain looks more jade-like. Very fresh, very fragrant. Probably more smoother than last week's Baozhong. It has also a larger range of brewing. You can leave it a bit longer, it won't become astringent. This one, last week, we had really to keep it very short to minimize the noise on the taste. This one, we can feel the taste is much smoother, and it can be brewed a bit longer, but here we brewed it quite short, and it's still very fragrant, even though we used even fewer leaves than last week. However, I would not go to using half to compensate for double the price. Then it would still become a bit too weak. That's why the idea is you want something in between, maybe 50% more cost, so maybe only 25%, 20%, 25% less leaves. But very, very nice on the taste this time, and these very nice fragrances. Okay, let's continue with our look in the past. Thanks especially to the Taiwan Tea Merchant Association, sometimes called the Taipei Tea Merchant Association. The name of this association changed over time. Their mission also changed over time. Nowadays they do mostly archiving and preserving the documents from the past, and it's thanks to these documents that T. Parker wrote this book. Even though he complained a little bit in the book that the person doing the archiving would not let him photocopy the documents outside of the association, fearing, maybe rightly, that these documents could be lost. And but this mission was not always archiving. For a long time it was also maintaining the quality of the leaves. In earlier times, Taiwan teas, when they were so as hot as microchip nowadays, they had to have a very stringent quality control and quality levels. Actually, they had the association had 5 levels of quality. The extra fine level was called Toiwai Cha. This is roughly a score of 90 or between 90 and 100, as Robert Parker would give one to wine. Then we have the fine quality level called Hulu Cha, 80 or to 90. Then we have the medium level called Xiang Dui Cha, 70 to 80. Common level, Tian Dui Cha, 60 to 70. And the standard, Baozhong Cha, 50 to 60. So the association had to be on the lookout for people who were maybe trying to sell lower, inferior quality leaves. There are some maybe bad apples always in a basket. Some would even sell tea that had been used before and then re-dried and then scented with flowers again. So all kinds of tricks already happened at that time, and it was necessary to have an association that kept controlling the members, making sure that they would sell not only good quality, but the quality that was shown on the label, and not making such tricks of re-drying spent leaves and selling them for the cheap. At one point they also tried to, especially during the Japanese era, to use this association like a cartel in order to maintain higher prices. However, from what I read, these attempts always failed because there were too many members and too much competition, so they were not able to keep prices higher artificially. This was not possible. Besides, tea was one of the 3 treasures of the Taiwanese economy. The other 2 treasures were sugar and camphor, and they were competitive enough unless they were taxed. This was the major problem, not so much a problem of keeping high prices. Of course, everybody wished to have high prices, but in this low entry barrier industry, it's too difficult to maintain high prices. Oh, this reminds me, I have made some price reductions today on several teas. I invite you to check my store, t-masters.com, to check them out. Give me also thumbs up if you like this tea lesson. One more fact that is a bit less known. First, remember we said that Baozhong is wrapped in the middle using a sheet of paper. That sheet of paper measures 38.5 times 35.5 centimeters, so almost square. And already at that time, the Taiwanese merchants would use very clever marketing and branding. They would use auspicious animals, animals that are considered bringing good luck in Chinese culture, because their customers in Southeast Asia sometimes have lived there for several generations, and while they might still continue to speak Chinese, maybe they did not learn to write it so well. So using pictures of animals or of beautiful, colorful birds, or sometimes even beautiful Chinese ladies in Chinese costumes, qipao, or in Western costumes with hats. These were ways to appeal to a common culture, common values, without the problem of the language barriers. And so they were, the most forefathers of Nike, Adidas, McDonald's, very good at branding with simple images and getting across the message of quality and of finesse, of luxury for these teas. Very good. Now, next week we are going to do a class about scented teas in particular. That's why I'm going to brew the Osmanthus Baozhong from Sanxia next week. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and see you next week. Let me see if you have any questions so far. Oh, we have Joanne, we have Terry. Is Jade Varietal a medium or high-level caffeine tea? I would say it's more medium. The Jade cultivar is also known as cultivar number 13, TTES, so a creation of a mix of two cultivars by the Taiwan Tea Research Institute. This was created in the early 1980s. And the character of Jade and Jinshuan is very fragrant, but not with a very light taste. So a light taste usually indicates less caffeine. It's not so powerful in terms of taste. Also, Baozhong is harvested with more mature leaves. It's more in the green tea, in the buds, that you have the highest concentration of caffeine. Oolong has a bit less, and red tea even less. We also have Elizabeth, floral and silky smooth, but the scent also has something a bit savory to me. What do you think? I don't know if you can hear, I had a little bit of running nose, so while my taste buds still work very well, my nose is a bit impaired to recognize scents this week. I got more retroolfaction, so I got more the scents through the mouth than through the nose. But it's for me, It has some differences with the other one. It seems a little bit more mature, more maybe a bit more oxidized than than the one from last week. But if we look at the leaves themselves, they look quite green. Not much oxidation on the sides, so it's really a typical modern Baozhong that is pleasing to the general taste, which goes more for lighter floral scents than the fruitier notes. And this makes sense in early spring. This is when the temperatures are coldest, especially this year was quite cold for a long time. So the smells especially are very refined and very bright. Terry, thank you for an excellent class. Thank you very much, Terry. Glad you enjoyed it. Even you cannot order the tea this time, Elizabeth, especially in the wet leaves. Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful tea. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm glad you are enjoying it, and I wish you a wonderful Sunday. See you next week again for a class about scented Baozhong, and we're going to taste the Osmanthus Baozhong. Bye bye.